Today's the day, man. We're finally going to put Cerebus 1 under the microscope. It was some time ago that we did a comparison video. Took Cerebus 1, took Cerebus 300 by Dave Sim, compared and contrasted, but we didn't really read Cerebus 1. Let's see how it stands up. Welcome to your favorite YouTube channel, Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Ed Piskor.
I'm Jim Rugg.
Cerebus number 1 is under the microscope today. First, you must know that this is a daily YouTube channel with more than 1,600 videos at your disposal. You probably talked about some of your favorite comics. Go to the front page of the Cartoonist Kayfabe YouTube channel. Hit the magnifying glass. Give the channel a search for your favorite comics. Check out those episodes. We are partially supported by the Patreon, and the King Kayfabers on the Patreon get access to all the videos before anybody else. Mitigates the Kayfabe effect. We've been pumping up the numbers on the channel. We are on the road to 100,000 subscribers. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. With that comes a big audience who are snapping up the comics that we talk about on the aftermarket pretty quickly. But if you're a King Kayfaber, you have access to those comics on the aftermarket at the cheapest rates before anybody else does. Some time ago, Jimmy, maybe within the past year and a half, we took a look at the artwork from Cerebus number 1 by Dave Sim, and we took a look at the artwork of Cerebus number 300 after 30 years of time or so, to see how the cartooning has grown and how he evolved over time. But we didn't really read the first Cerebus issue, so no time like the present as far as I'm concerned. And I feel like even just with these covers here, this is from about '86. The first phone book collection. You see how the character evolved, just in that time span.
Yeah. Probably even just, by the time you get, I don't know, halfway through there, you get that change. This is kind of neat, the Cerebus Biweekly, because he would publish these and include whatever extra information was available. Yes. Reprint every part of the book. You see like the inside front cover editorial and stuff like that all presented there. But it was some of the later bi-weeklies will have like layouts and just like all kind of like cool extra stuff. Again, I think it's what he has available in his archives.
Right.
And then he'll put like some notes on it. But it's really interesting. Like the first thing I'll note is circulation, 35,000. This is, I think, around 1988, this issue comes out. So a little bit after the black and white explosion peak, and he is doing 35,000 copies of this thing.
On the bi-weekly. This ain't even the series proper.
And a reprint. So he's not even drawing this all month. This is like put this together in a day, send it to the printer, and make some bank.
Two a month?
Yes.
Plus the regular issue. He was doing well. And by all accounts, like he lived that lifestyle. And who was it, man? Was it Laird? Was it Bissett? They would talk about how, like, was it Scott McCloud? They would talk about he would show up to events like in limousines and stuff.
Yes.
Because like we're professionals, we're stars. Like be a star, be a baller.
One of those stories is renting the penthouse at San Diego.
Yeah.
Like in probably around this time, in the 80s. So like he was flying high and really like his own boss at a time when everybody almost was a jobber.
Right.
And it's like, hey, look at me. I do what I want and live large.
Those poor Canadians, too, with the taxes they pay. Like, we bitch and complain. So he was getting some expenses, man. Like with that limo comes a little bit of a write-off.
It's cool. One of the extra pieces in this issue is he talks about that idea of doing 300 issues.
Yeah.
That's not an idea whenever he's drawing this first issue. I think that was after second issue is when he starts to go with that concept.
Right.
This video is brought to you by the comics that we make. Ed Piskor's Switchblade Shorties is now running as a daily comic strip on Instagram, Webtoons, Facebook, wherever you find your comics. Look for Switchblade Shorties. Ed also has Hip Hop Family Tree, the Omnibus, out in stores everywhere now, collecting all of the Hip Hop Family Tree strips, along with 150 extra pages, and available in diminishing quantities. So pick that one up if you haven't added it to your shelf. The next Red Room collection, Crypto Killers, is now out in stores. Completely self-contained, so if you haven't read Red Room before, Crypto Killers, perfect place to start. And X-Men Grand Design, the trilogy trade paperback, collecting all of the X-Men Grand Design in one trade paperback volume. My Grand Design, Hulk Grand Design, is coming to the trade paperback format, and you can pre-order this one now. the Hulk Grand Design Treasury out of print. So if your store still has a copy and you don't, pick it up. But if you missed it, there's a trade paperback coming. I've been self-publishing lately. True Crime Funnies, my nonfiction collection, BW celebrating the black and white indie comics of the 80s and 90s, and the 1986 zine celebrating the greatest year in comics history are available at jimrugg.com or patreon.com/jimrugg. And my latest books, Street Angel Princess of Poverty and Street Angel Deadliest Girl Alive, collecting all of my homeless ninja on a skateboard superhero comics in 2 handsome volumes from Image Comics. And now back to our video.
And it does begin as it's interesting that, like, you know, being the mindful creator that he is, that he allowed the story to start with different pagination. Probably like very clear, like wasn't thinking about that much. Like
it's odd.
You just got to get through your first comic.
And you know, the first thing, and everybody says this, it starts out as a Conan Barry Windsor Smith ripoff. So you see a lot of the Conan influence and the Barry Windsor Smith influence here.
And it really is like that late period. He's got the Windsor in the name. Gorblimey Press. He's probably been out of comics for a minute at this point, doing those super hyper detailed prints and things. We showed a bunch of that stuff off. But with these marks, those are the late period. Like, it's Red Nails era.
Yeah, and you really see it in certain things like an arm or a hand.
The faces for sure. Like these lines and these kind of marks. Off the bat, I'm gonna say this is a good comic. This is an awesome comic, and I was considering like writing a bullet point for each page about what is kind of established, because it hits the ground running, and we've looked at a lot of #1 comics on this channel where series begin and things, and you just get fucking nothing. I think for most of the first 25, they might bleed into one another a little bit, but they're pretty much one and done, like pretty solid stories. This is a complete story, and on page 1 you establish your guy, and he's goofy. Now, this is not the first Dave Sim comic. He was established to some extent with the Mike Friedrich wing of Brown Level Comics with Star Reach, but like if he didn't appear in Star Reach, Gene Day was a big sort of mentor. If he didn't appear in Star Reach, he absolutely appeared in these like satellite publications like Quack, which were in answer to Howard the Duck being out there. And if you look in the early comics journals, which we'll cover more of those in the future, he places ads in the old comics journal and has his rates for like he wants to be in comics, and he will do anything in comics, and he has his rates there. Here's what I charge to ink a page. You could have got the best letterer in comics to letter your pages for like $8 a page or something at a certain period of time. It was probably closer to this lettering. Yeah. But even his lettering sort of evolves very quickly. So we establish our character at the start. There's some fear amongst the townspeople, like maybe they know his reputation.
Yes, precedes him.
Good captioning, like senses, like getting the senses involved. That's the stuff that you can't see. We talk about like don't show and tell. Smelling the wet fur, that's something that you can't quite get visually.
Nice sequence here. Guy grabs his tail, loses his hand.
Yeah,
pretty good little 3-panel strip there.
We go Moss Eisley's I Can't Serve You. We don't serve droids here.
Good silhouettes, too. That previous page had them sort of like walking the 3 characters, and then you get it again here. So good use of black and white from the get-go.
Yeah, and it's a way to like convey background without having to sort of kind of go the distance. The Red Nails stuff would have these kind of grids, grid works and things. So I think that was and the Gorblimey Press. That's when BWS is drawn every leaf.
Right.
So he makes a deal in the tavern with a couple of scoundrels, and they want to go get this flame jewel. So we have our intentions built by page 3.
Very Conan-esque.
And it's time to get busy. I like to see these little throwaway things where like we get to see how Dave Sim builds his characters.
Right.
That's the cool thing, that you get a shadow monster.
Yeah, and the shadow monster, there's some formal play because the sword cuts through the shadow. I really like that. That's, again, I think it's inventive in that you're trying to use whatever visuals you have here. Pretty good.
Yeah, and this one in particular, having it go kind of, it's like it got caught on something. It feels really, really solid. When it dies, it goes back into shadow. Cool little trope.
It's great, and it's done in 1.5 pages.
This is the kind of thing that Sim probably needed to see in print to see how that Zipatone would hold up, and he does go with a lighter tone, a lighter screen, a little bit more air in between the dots in the future because it does get dark. Then you have this kind of like Wizard of Oz. It's a Wizard of Oz story, and the bumbling boob of a wizard. He doesn't got it anymore.
Right.
You know, he's trying to cast spells and is kind of just missing the mark.
Pretty good. That's a kind of a nuanced take on a wizard.
Right.
It's good. It's like writing 101 too, where like all these characters have a little dimensionality to them.
Right. Going Harryhausen with the skeletons.
The skeleton looks good.
Got to fight some of those. This issue it really has everything but, you know, the damsel. You know, you got to wait for I think it's maybe 5 issues for that. Looking at him twisting up the Mr. Thrifty skeleton is that is not easy to do.
No, it isn't. Skeletons. We used to have to draw those in figure drawing classes. You know, we had like the science full-size skeleton, and it'd be like pose it and then draw it, and no fun.
No.
I wouldn't want to twist that around. It makes me wonder if he had a skeleton.
Yeah,
in
like
the studio.
That's what that Mr. Thrifty thing is, man. That's what Jeff Darrow told us about. He said everybody had that, and Frank Miller bought Mr. Thrifties for a bunch of the guys, and it's the backbone of, no pun intended, for a lot of the figure drawing from dudes of that generation that we know.
I used to have a skeleton. I gave it away, and sometimes I regret it.
A human skeleton.
Yeah, it was legit.
Those are those grave drop ones, man.
Yeah, you're not supposed to. You're not. Yeah. That was part of why I got rid of it. Was like, I don't know what to do with this thing. You're gonna put it in the attic, and then like somebody's gonna find it years later.
Good storytelling here, dude, with the long narrow panels.
Yes.
Crash into the ground. It's a 4-panel comic strip basically.
Yeah, a lot of animation. That's a nice piece, you know. If you're going to have an action comic, an adventure comic, you do got to have that kind of have some motion and movement, and well done.
We have a shadow monster, we have a skeleton. Now let's go psychedelia and have kind of like a head trip sequence.
Pretty wild stuff.
And it makes so much better sense with the pagination of the phone book, because it's like you establish here and then you just as a spread it feels like it all continues.
It does make me wonder. I might be wrong about page 1 being that text piece.
I don't think it is. I think it was the editorial on the inside cover of issue 1. Man, we could have had issue 1 to look at. I dropped the ball on that.
There is an editorial on the inside cover that is from the editorial on the inside cover. This was the inside cover for sure. Mm-hmm. This piece is the one I'm not sure where it appeared. I thought it was there because I don't know why you would do it this way. Well, I mean, you didn't backdate it.
I mean, this could be like when it came out.
Oh, you know what? It's from Sword of Cerebus. Yeah. It's from 1981.
Yeah. Yeah, you just talk about the time it came from. So we have our psychedelia. Looks great. It all helps like build these pages.
This is exactly what I want in comics, and this is the stuff I complain about talking heads in comics.
Right.
Like, give me something visual. Sim is pulling out a whole bunch of visuals.
This was a pretty fascinating piece. I was studying this sequence a bit, man. You got your Frank King thing going on, but the establishment of these like black areas, kind of Kirby-esque. Now, I do think that it's just a pattern in the dinosaur, but to break up the white space with those shapes, it makes sense to me. There's thought behind that.
Yeah, I don't know. It is odd.
Yeah, it's very noticeable. And there was a part I was like, is he going Kirby? And I was like, no, maybe it's just like the stripes of the lizard or whatever.
It's interesting if you look at the figures because there are flaws in his drawing.
Oh yeah, sure.
But he does a really good job of like overcoming them.
Yeah, and they're not that big of a deal, really. Like, because like
they aren't.
The storytelling is still so clear. You know, like I got hold of this comic when I was very young, and the one that was when he menaces the barkeeper. This hand right there. Mm-hmm. I remember my hands looked like that at the time that I read this, and that was a very kind of like liberating thing because I also knew what Sim grew into. So I'm like, my hands are no good like that. Like they look just like that.
Right.
And to see where he grows like later, it's like, okay, just keep going, man. This has been sampled by others. I've seen this drawing kind of cribbed. If he didn't crib it himself, even I don't know. But man, it's all in here, dude. every couple of pages there's some new obstacle in pursuit of this flame jewel. So once again, storytelling 101, intention and obstacle. We know what we want, and now we have all of our Joseph Campbell impediments
Yes.
along the way. We got to test we got to get our newly established hero over.
Exactly.
And how do you do that? Like, there's wise storytelling stuff in it too, because you don't start with this guy. This is a gigantic. This is a final boss.
Yes.
Man. So build up. Have your shadow monster as kind of nondescript. Have a skeleton. Fuck up their heads with some dope, and then you build to this guy. So that's like smart storytelling instincts.
Yeah, and I give a lot of that I put on that wizard character. Because the wizard is struggling, you see him pulling out like whatever he can do.
Right. And you gotta overcome that, right? So Cerebus, he has some wisdom on top of the barbarian nature. Close the eyes because what you can't see can't hurt you type shit. Start swinging the blade. That's the old Simpsons joke. I'm gonna walk like this and I'm gonna go like this with my hand, and if you're in front of me, it's not my fault. So he's pulling that rap on the Wizard of Oz here. Gets to him, dispatches the fella. Sim is going to get real sharp with these kind of rocks later. Like that's, you see what he's doing, because that's Bernie Wrightson. I feel like established that in mainstream comics. Those kind of rock where it's just the shadow, because you see Kelly Jones doing this. You see a lot of guys pulling that. But like Sim, when he builds his future backwards, and maybe it's Gerhardt, they feel more realized. All right, man. So we end this one in a wrap it up in a bun, right? You want your flame jewel? Here's your flame jewel. But not necessarily a monkey's paw kind of story, but close.
They do a great job of Cerebus being smarter than these two guys too,
right?
Because they're like, "Oh man, we can give you 10,000 bags of gold now," and he's like, "Nah, just pay me."
Right.
And good choice.
Yeah, he gets his one bag, and then is like, he already knows that the jewel is a walnut, and explains the kind of magic behind it. As soon as the wizard's heart stopped beating, the flame jewel no longer had any magic to it, and it's just but a lowly walnut. Man, you choose to do a damn barbarian comic, that means you got to draw horses. No fun.
Yeah.
Goes off in the distance, dude. He's that's every episode of Fist of the North Star after Kenshiro dispatches the monster of the week. It's
so funny because his silhouettes are strong throughout this issue until you get to the very final one, and then it's just weird.
Which is interesting because in later issues, he's gonna fix that, because he always keeps space in between the horse and Cerebus. A little preview for issue 2. Eric Kahn. How many copies of that damn comic have passed through the Kayfabe Studios?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's enough to get into my collection. This is pretty neat.
Day.
Well, not just celebrating. This was advertised in Cerebus 1.
Oh, okay.
And had to be pulled.
Yes.
Well, he had to destroy them. Gene Day had to destroy the portfolio because George Lucas was like, nah, not gonna do that. Hey, you know what's neat? Go back one. A call to Cartoonist. $150 he'll pay you if he runs your one-page comic. And I never thought to look, but I wonder what all ended up appearing in these bi-weeklies as like the single page. He would do this a lot, Dave Sim. In Cerebus, he would often he would do different things and promote like other self-publishers, small press cartoonists.
Yeah, he established the 20-page monthly comic.
Yeah.
As a single person. 20 pages was what he could muster, but he's still printing a signature of 32 pages, quite sure. So there was always room in the back pages, and there was a Cerebus effect for sure. Everybody talked about that stuff. I think even Wayne and Fred, I think they got a mention in a Cerebus whenever they got the first Xeric for Grey Legacy, and they got a bunch of mail orders direct from Cerebus readers. So.
He did interesting stuff back there too. Like whenever they came up with the 24-hour comic, he ran several of those. I think he might have ran Bissett and Neil Gaiman, if not the whole thing, at least excerpts of their 24-hour comics in issues of Cerebus.
I could almost guarantee, like, if we were the dudes that we are now, picking up Cerebus when there were like really, 10 interesting independent comics that you could pick up that were adjacent to Marvel DC, I bet you we would have bought everything that would show up in those back pages.
Yes.
Including Hepcats.
Mm-hmm. This is the other part that's so smart is like you see what he's doing here. So Cerebus Weekly, bi-weekly, very easy to get into Cerebus. If you want single issues, you can sell them to comic stores, but also promoting all your stuff.
Yeah, this is where he gets jammed up with Steve Jeppy, because the phone book's like, directly available, and the Tony Soprano of the comic industry is like, we control distribution, motherfucker. You gotta send that shit through Diamond. What is this, man? We made you. Phil Seuling bought 1,000 Cerebus #1s, motherfucker, and Bud Plant bought another 1,000, and you're gonna turn your back on the people who made you? Guess what? We're not gonna carry Cerebus anymore. We're not gonna carry Puma Blues. We're not gonna carry Flaming Carrot. Fuck all your other comics, man, because you won't let us. You won't go into business with us on the phone books.
Do you see the rates that he's selling these at though? They're $25 a pop if I ordered one. But if I wanted a box of them, like it's not really, there's no real price break there. It's $340 for High Society, 16 of those. So slightly less than $25, but not a discount, not like 50% or 40% off.
Right.
So I don't know how a store would have gotten these early on. And I wonder if part of the reason he didn't go through Diamond initially is because like this was a new format. I don't know who else was doing this kind of format, this idea of like, I'm going to put 25 issues in a book.
Right.
So price-wise, I think maybe there was struggles there. It may have been pretty expensive for him to print, and he may not have been able to offer that discount at that time.
Right. And I do think he had to waffle, of course. Like I'm sure that these books came through proper distribution channels that we all know, but definitely a little interesting piece of comics history. So the first one does contain 25 issues. And you see that it doesn't take him that long to start tightening up that lettering, to shorten that snout a bit.
To develop his own voice, too, to get away from the Barry Windsor Smith.
Well, it's almost all here. Like he exercises all the Barry Windsor Smith stuff in the first 25.
But you see, like, the panel layouts and stuff, like he's starting to do the stuff that would kind of go on to define a lot of what I think of as Cerebus.
Yeah, introduces his cast of characters and things. But
it's funny, there was like a wavy page of panels halfway through this, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, this is starting to look like Dave Sim. And then it goes away. Like I haven't seen it again since you've been flipping through, but like those little gutters. There's a lot of these tells.
Right, and certainly the lettering giving more air around the balloons.
Cerebus has certainly taken on his stylized version.
Right.
That snout. It's like it got cut off in a fight.
And it, yeah, right. And then it, it builds to this guy, and he pretty much stays like this through the rest of the book. I finally, through one of our travels, I was able to scoop up like one of the last trades, because it's odd, like stores do not carry
no, they don't.
These books anymore, and they all say the same thing, like they were collecting dust for years, and then we sold the last couple, we just never re-upped.
Yeah, I remember, I'm going to say it's Andrew Neal, but I could be wrong with who the vendor is, who used to run, what was the name of his store in Chapel Hill? Yeah. And he ran, like a lot of these store owners, they have limited square footage.
Yeah.
And they track what sells. And he said he had a set of those on the shelf for over a year and didn't sell one. And it's like, that's valuable space. Can't have them out there if they're not selling. Giving
away the razor and selling the blades kind of stuff. When this stopped appearing on the monthly racks and stuff, there was no support for the trades.
I think quality-wise, it's a really uneven series. Probably peaks around the High Society, Church and State. Like if you guys are at home and have never read Cerebus and want to give it a shot, I'd recommend you start with High Society. And then like a lot of us have talked about how by the end it's hard to read some of it. Like some of it's Bible verses and things that are almost non-narrative.
Yeah. Like it starts to kind of like Jaka's story is cogent, and then there's like the ones where there's just full prose on pages and just showing a single image. It gets really, really business like impossible to understand. And then I feel like the last couple of trades, yeah, there's Bible verses, you just ignore those parts, but it at least becomes comics again. And it becomes kind of like, okay, you're parodying gaming, you're doing that, you're exercising some demons and stuff. It becomes comics again.
Yeah, he does. I think one of the trades guys. It's
Yeah.
Cerebus in a bar, and I think a lot of people come through like Eddie Campbell's
Rick
and
Veitch.
yeah, like real cartoonists show up as like patrons at the bar and everything. It's bizarre. Melmoth was the first one I ever read, and that's the Oscar Wilde
Wilde, yeah.
storyline. And I think I found it used or something cheap, whatever reason, I ended up buying it and enjoyed reading that. So I ended up tracking down more of them from there. When I was in school, I remember there was a painter I'd talked to, and he knew I liked comics. Mm-hmm. The only comic he read was Cerebus. Like,
Sure,
he wasn't
yeah,
really a comic guy.
Yeah, there's a devoted following for sure.
Yeah, it's a unique book.
Good to go.
Yes.
Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell so that we can notify you when new videos are available, and we are en route to having 100,000 subscribers. It would mean a lot if you subscribe to the vids and get us up to that goal. The channel is brought to you by many things, including the Patreon. King Kayfabers on the Patreon get access to all of our videos before anybody else. They're hanging out with us in a live stream recording chat room right now as we make these episodes. And because they get everything before anybody else, they're able to buy the comics that we talk about before anybody else in Gen Pop gets access to these vids and these comics. Ultimately, the videos are brought to you by the books that we make. You don't buy our books, we can't make any videos. Jimmy, let the people know what you have out in stores now.
I've been self-publishing lately, so I have True Crime Funnies, my nonfiction anthology featuring crime and wrestling. I've also been making zines, the BW zine celebrating the 80s and 90s self-publishing and indie comics, the 1986 zine celebrating the greatest year in comics history. These are available at jimrugg.com or patreon.com/jimrugg. My Grand Design, Hulk Grand Design, is available as a treasury edition, but this is sold out. So if your store doesn't have a copy, you're probably out of luck. But there is a trade paperback coming in May that you can pre-order now, the Hulk Grand Design trade paperback. And my latest releases, Street Angel Princess of Poverty and Street Angel Deadliest Girl Alive, featuring the homeless ninja on a skateboard. From Image Comics, you can get these wherever books are bought and sold, and perfect for the superhero fan in your life.
The Switchblade Shorties comic strip is coming to you on a daily basis. I have a directory, an archive at Webtoon for Switchblade Shorties, but if you're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, you'll be able to get your hands on all of the comics on a daily basis. The Hip Hop Family Tree Omnibus is out in the wild right now in very, very limited supply. 150 pages of material that is new specifically for this book. So it's the ultimate volume of Hip Hop Family Tree. Get it while supplies last. Thank you very much for supporting it the way you have been. Red Room Crypto Killers is the new round of Red Room comics that is out. What happened?
I was going to flip through it, and then I remembered YouTube doesn't like us flipping through this book, Ed.
Right, man. It is the new round of Red Room Comics, Murder on the Dark Web for Fun and Profit. Think Black Mirror meets EC Comics in a way. 4 stories in there. You can start with this comic, or you can start with any of them, because all stories are self-contained in each volume. And finally, the X-Men Grand Design Trilogy trade paperback is out there in the wild, collecting all of my X-Men Grand Design works. Some of those volumes are out of print, so it's your way to get all of my X-Men Grand Design in one handy-dandy soft cover edition. Like I said up front, you got to buy the books in order for us to kind of keep the lights on in the studio. YouTube don't pay nothing. But there are some ways to directly support the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel. Jimmy, let the people know what those are.
You can subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe e-newsletter at the links below this video. You can also buy Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, merchandise, mugs, hats, stickers, and more at our spread shop. That link is also under this video.
All good ways to support the channel. Give them those final marching orders, Jimmy, and we'll be on our way.
Read more comics.